It does. Oh, well.
Okay, we have the recording running.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Charles Tuxey, Chair of the East Sound Planning Review Committee, and we're going to bring the April 6th meeting to order. Very happy to have everyone here. The first order of business, I just wanted to say that we are very sad to have lost Terry Gillespie. Thank you. Terry Gillespie, leading actress. Terry was such a great fund of knowledge for us, having spent many years with building and construction and design, and knew a lot about land use and historic rollover of various properties on the island. And we were very sad to see him go, but he's going to have.
And his years of EPRC.
And years of EPRC.
Because he was, before this last stint, he was on for
so
at least 10
we wish him the best of luck. He is going to be selling his home and spending time, at least possibly moving to his family's son's place. So that's exciting for Terry. Yeah. So does anybody have any additions or modifications you'd like to make to the current agenda? No. Okay. Great. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, so I sent out the March meeting minutes. Did anybody have any comments about those, or? Okay. Would everybody like to go ahead and approve by general consensus the March meeting minutes? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So the minutes are approved. Both. Yeah. Okay. It's slightly before time, but we've got a lot to get through, so I'm just going to move on through. And if anyone comes in the next 7 minutes and would like to add to a public comment, we'll certainly let them speak. But
Charles, did you say we're time limited to 4:30?
We are not time limited to 4:30. It is.
I am.
David is.
Me and Brooke have to. Right now, we're looking at gale conditions out there, and we're in smaller boat today, so I'm expecting a slow, ugly ride home.
Yeah, good.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for information for the future, having the times on for specific items pushes you to have to follow those times as a public meeting. If I may make a recommendation, is just have a start time of 3 o'clock, not denote the specific times for each of the items. I was actually going to make a recommendation that maybe we bump the county business, the applications ahead of everything, so we could be here. But the way it's agendized right now, you can't even talk about those before 4:45.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we
well,
have done that. In the past.
Okay. Well, then shall we agree to make an agenda addition or deletion in this case? Of the
I
times?
wouldn't say, I would not say for today, I'd say for future agenda. You know, start time. And,
Okay.
yeah,
Fair enough.
if the body needs an end time, that's appropriate as well.
Okay.
But just not denoting specific times for everything.
Would you both like us to discuss the permits while you're here?
No, I can't, because you've got a public meeting that says the permits can't be discussed till 4:45. And at that point, we're already going to get it back down to.
I think they're pretty straightforward. We'll send you.
We're
right.
not-
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
But we have done that and not done that in the past.
Yeah.
So that's probably a little bit of transition stuff.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
probably is
It's just a recommendation is all.
What time
Okay.
are you out of here?
I think I gotta be out of here about 4:30. We're looking at gale conditions out there right now. Getting progressively worse into the evening. My bosses don't appreciate when I run the boats in gales.
No.
Okay.
No drowning allowed. So.
So does anybody present have any public comment?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, yes.
I'll put on a different hat for a minute.
Okay, great.
Not the trails hat. But
Would you introduce yourself?
Margaret Payne, speaking. I have mentioned that it's not okay for Dobe Wine Company or Roots Coffee Company, same owners, to have their signs on the sidewalk. I've walked into the shop 2 or 3 times, said, that is where people walk. You can be just off the sidewalk, to no avail. So do I need to call the county to complain, or did someone know?
There's a, you have front row seat to the county. However, in general,
This has been for 2 years, a sandwich board on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Which is only 5 feet wide.
Yeah, where is it in town exactly?
So it's in Woods, near Woods Cove, so it's on North Beach. Yeah.
So,
Dobe Wine is in East Sound Square.
yeah.
Yeah,
So East Sound
And then-
Square is that group of buildings with
And then-
the ice cream.
the
shop.
ice cream.
And then Roots is in the Templin Center building on the corner of Main and North Beach.
Yeah, and there's plenty of room for them to have their signs, but when you've only got 5 feet,
Exactly.
and
Let me run by, I'll try to run by today and at least talk to Dobe Wine, but I'll send that over to Public Works as an FYI to them as well.
Okay,
It would be their enforcement because it's a right of way, but let me see if I can
That's
talk
Cole
to them.
Sisson.
Yeah, I didn't see Cole there today when I walked by the shop. So
Okay.
Another, but one that
I'm gonna drive by and drop it.
is Nation.
Mhm.
Nation has also been, it's been good now, but.
Okay.
been in the past.
Okay,
Thank
Great.
you.
and Margaret, so absolutely coming to this meeting is one way to do that when we have the county present, which is wonderful. Also, there is a form online that you can report for an
Okay.
enforcement form, and I can send you that link.
yeah, I hate to be a bad cop, and I tried to be the nice cop, but it didn't really work.
It's the way you should do it.
Sometimes that's the way.
That's great. Okay. Well, Cindy, are you available to give us your county update?
give us the county update. I just spent 2 days at the Marine Managers meetings. And that was a gathering of people from different agencies in the states and some of the feds who deal with the marine infrastructure and health of marine ecology around here. And also our county staff that does that kind of work. And so Brooke was there as well. And that's nice because she's with DCD and the rest of the team that was there was from environmental stewardship. So we're getting a good mix, good synergy between departments. And Brooke knows things about eelgrass that I didn't know. The upshot is that there's a lot of support out there for looking at the consequences of coastal sea level rise and climate resilience. And so everybody's aware of the effects that the heat domes are having, especially at low tide. So anyway, I could rattle on about that. That's top of mind right at the moment. So that is part and parcel of this whole shift that we're making inside of the county in terms of the way that we're looking at sustainability and how we're doing business. So the Public Works Department, the Environmental Stewardship Department, and the Fleet Management and the administration moved into the new Beaverton Valley building. Yes, over on San Juan Island. And so they moved out of the Spring Street building. And so now we are in a position as a county to think about, for about 30 years now, there's been talk of building a new building for admin, for those elected offices that are currently housed in the addition to the courthouse. Well, we got the seismic data on all of that. The unfortunate thing I have to share with you is that our entire law and justice administration could be crushed at 6 point.
Just 6. Boy.
Yeah.
Okay, you lose DCD too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they have a reinforced cinder block over there.
Yeah.
So we're at a point where, my very conservative county assessor friend has come to me and said, I'm just terrified to go to work. We've got to have a new building. The treasurer has sat down with me and showed me the financial position of the county, and we're in a pretty good position to go out for a walk. So I think at this point, 30 years worth of plans that the assessor dropped on my desk need to result in the building. And that was brought before council, and council is definitely, as a whole, is definitely interested in looking at a plan for that.
is
So
that same location or somewhere else?
what would happen, the preliminary idea is we would take all of the kind of 1980s kludge of weeping brick that was glued onto the courthouse, off the courthouse, use matching funds from the state, which hopefully we're going to get because we applied and it made it into the Senate budget, House budget, and then we did some lobbying and maybe it'll get into the final. So there might be matching funds to be able to do the seismic retrofit on the courthouse itself, the historic courthouse. And then we would build a new building in that sort of parking lot area right now. And we would reinforce the cinder block bunker over there and let health continue to live there. We would put, leave the PA where they are in that courthouse, and then put all the other functions that aren't up at Beaverton into a big new building. And Beaverton, we would probably leave public works, maybe environmental stewardship. I don't know. It kind of depends on how it all fits in there. Fleet management, all the stuff that deals with big
And
trucks.
that's who moved out there already?
They moved to Beaverton already. Yeah. But they're squished in with admin as well. So Mike and his team and the IT department went up to Beaverton, and they're all living together in the Beaverton offices in very crowded conditions, but happy in a new building. So, and hopefully what will happen is the admin function would come out of there. Maybe environmental stewardship would come out of there as well. And it would, and I don't know if IT will stay there or if they'll come back down to a new building, probably. And so it would open up a lot more room for people for public works to expand business. So in the meantime, opening up Spring Street gives us some place, and we moved admin up to Beaverton because, well, first of all, because HVAC's really bad in the county. It's a shack. I don't know if you can see it. It's yeah. It's not in good condition. And so they're freezing in the winter time, and they're in there somehow. So, but for temporary digs, it's okay. We could pull the PA out within there, put all the essential services like the assessor, auditor, those people into Spring Street while we do the demo and then build the building and then meet everybody back. So, and then maybe county housing, where the county council legislative thing is right now.
So the 30-year bond, when do you sort of anticipate that? Or do you have any idea yet?
Don't have any idea yet. We're waiting for the architect to come back with something that council can agree is what we should do.
Would the courthouse and the new building be separate bonds or separate?
No. The funding for the old courthouse would mostly come out of money that's already been kind of set aside in the general fund for that, and state money that's available for courthouse.
Okay.
And historic, is there state money for historical preservation?
Yeah, it's called a historical courthouse grant.
Okay.
They're historic courthouse grants, so that would be, yeah. So that's sort of the scheme as it stands at the moment. We'll see how it all shakes out. And hopefully it doesn't shake until,
Let's hope it doesn't shake.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you would like to speak to it or if you'd like to ask Brooke or anyone else to
Mhm.
speak to it. But I'm really curious about what what they're learning from the marine management ecology. I mean, looking at the risk areas, specifically on Orcas and East Sound, but for the county. You had mentioned last time that there was the possibility of looking at that 75-year window for the age of a house, the lifetime of a house, and not issuing new permits on the North Beach. Is there anything beyond that that you think would possibly affect sound that we should know about?
I think the port is gonna have to seriously get on addressing what's gonna happen with the airport.
Okay,
I mean, if you look at the current FEMA maps that were put in, the FEMA flood maps that were drawn up in 2018, it shows the north half of the runway gone.
I can provide a little background there too,
Yeah.
because there was a mitigation site that was meant to be put in up there on the west side. You probably would all be more familiar with than me, but Ecology let me know that freshwater wetland restoration has actually gone saltwater already. And so he was asking me, what's your plan? The airport. I said, well, thanks. That's the first time I've heard of that. So the vegetation is already changing. There's my understanding, but I haven't looked at it.
so all of those trees that they planted, the hundreds and hundreds of trees, are probably not going to survive in that brackish environment.
I haven't been out there, but
Well, no, she's talking about,
Also,
you're talking about the south
northwest
side of the airport, right?
well, I was talking
The
about
west
the
side.
northwest side of the runway.
yeah, I believe there was a mitigation project up there that he was showing me on the west side of the airport, on the
Northwest.
northwest.
North.
Some clearing up there. Well, anyways, there was some kind of a wetland mitigation, and they had planned for it to be a freshwater wetland mitigation, and those plants are, there's salt intrusion because the plants are demonstrating that. So I know there's.
I think it was the same time they planted all those plants on the south side.
Okay,
Remember, you see, the fenced area on the south side. I think there's another one
Way down,
way
Just
down on
way
the
down,
north
yeah.
side.
So I was just the one behind the saw shop. That's what he was referring to. And I didn't think that would have saltwater intrusion.
well, I'm just wondering if, because the
The
swale flows from north to south, so if that's become brackish, then is there salt water?
Like I said, I haven't been out to the site, and I'm not really familiar with it, but I know that the issue is being raised at the state level as well. So it's all an issue.
Too, but
That's
then it
true.
runs
That's
out
true.
north. So I don't think it's not, saltwater's not coming to that.
Let's hope that's. right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wow.
Cindy, may I ask a question about your marine manager's comments too? And this is, I'm gonna put on my land bank hat for, this may be a little off topic, maybe more appropriate for Colin Hunter. But do you happen to know whether the county has a machine that rakes up weeds?
Rakes up weeds.
Weed, like marine seaweed?
She rakes up weeds. Weed seaweed.
Harvests.
I'm not aware,
I-
not aware of
There
that.
are those
A
machines. And the
floater
reason-
or
The reason I ask is that, every summer as, it gets warm and all of that duckweed and other seaweed ends up on Crescent Beach. And by July and August, it stinks. And it's unpleasant for visitors and local folks alike. And it's kind of embarrassing to me as a land bank preserve. And I've always wondered if there isn't something we could do about it easily.
Okay, so I'm gonna go way out of my lane here. And I'm gonna say that if I took that to the environmental stewardship department, I would probably hear that the seaweed stays where it is. And, and I'm guessing that's a state regulation, but I don't know. for sure. So, but I would be happy to ask,
Okay,
but yeah.
that would be great. I just like,
Well, and it does change. Do you remember it last year being that? I mean, it's moved so much. I mean, all of
I don't
the,
remember last year. I remember the summer before.
yeah, just changes so much. I mean, and all the
But
geographies come in.
Been a
Help
couple
us.
of times when it's been real.
Yeah.
So,
Does the tide bank own or the land bank own the tide lands? Out to,
that's complicated.
okay.
Yeah.
We own, some, and the state owns some. So
When you say the tonnage, you mean below water.
From like
no, I'm
minus
talking
4.5
about intertidal.
Intertidal.
I mean, it ends up on the beach and all of that. flat.
I mean, sometimes it's been, but
Anyway, I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I just.
Yeah, did you, just so I know, have you brought that up at the land bank board?
Yeah, I asked Lincoln and he said he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, the stewards might know.
I think it should be an Orcas concern. If we have.
Oh, you don't touch land bank stuff unless it goes through county. Right? I mean, it's like, I wouldn't ever presume to do anything about something on a land bank beach unless
Right.
it, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just asking whether there would be the
Yeah.
means to do that.
Yeah,
And not realizing anything about whatever laws or regulations. that might be.
if it was legal, it would still be something to be held from the next year.
That's the.
I mean, there were people that used to go down and get it and put it in their gardens, but I don't think that that's legal any longer to do that. So,
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to take the seaweed.
I don't know if you're not supposed to take anything.
unless it's man-made trash.
Right,
Yeah.
you can take it to class.
Class.
Okay.
Okay.
Harvest 10 pounds of a fishing vest.
What was that?
You can harvest 10 pounds.
10 pounds, okay.
For the fish.
But you know, there's organic contributions from the seaweed when it breaks down that feed the seagrass and shellfish population and stuff. So there's probably a whole food chain of events
Yeah.
there. It's probably caused by the road itself being there, where opening that up would flush that out. So there's it's probably a big story. I think environmental stewardship.
This might not be the time to discuss this. We can discuss it later in a meeting when we talk about updating the summary of planning goals document. But in our workshop meeting, several of us felt that it was important to call out Crescent Beach Road as a significant landmark to protect. And I know that you've been in discussions about possibly abandoning or whatever designation you would put on that road that would mean that it wasn't maintained. And I think that it would be nice to figure out who we should be talking to or how we can communicate with thoughts about Crescent Beach Road, because it means a lot to a lot of people, and one of the few places where you can drive along the water on Orcas Island, and wondering what options could be entertained there. Because I know that you want to have the free flow of water. Is it possible to build that up or have it end at a place where it's still part of the road can still be maintained and part of it could not be, or something. Does that see what I'm getting?
I don't think we're in a position until we've got the coastal flooding data to really have a coherent conversation about what the
Yeah.
plan should be.
Is that something that we could, someone could speak to us about that, or we could go and attend some meetings about how that could-
In theory, we will have that data towards the end of June. And I think the presentation might be the first presentation. I don't really know. is the answer.
Okay.
But I know June, I mean, yes, it's absolutely gonna be publicly available information. It will be presented several times in several different ways. There's, there will not be some sudden thing that happens. It will be a series of conversations with the community about why, what is happening and what the right decisions are. Like, it will be, we will be coming to the community with a policy proposal for how we're gonna handle the fact that we've got 13 miles of coastal road that is literally eroding, and that corresponds with our forage fish beaches and what sacrifices we want to make. Do we want a food web or do we want roads? Do we want to continue to spend, do we want to try to find $1 billion to build a causeway, or do we want to, drive around by the airport and have a walking path there and a bicycle path for as long as it's there? What do you, how do we want to handle that? So that's all a conversation that the
Yeah.
community's got to have
Yeah.
and make some decisions about what our philosophical orientation is and and what physically we want to have happen.
We were having the East Sound Vision talks back in 2017. Naomi Aldorf was really trying to promote the abandonment of that road, and there was a lot of strong feelings all over the place. And one of the concerns was that if we did do that there would only be one road tying each half of the island together.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be sort of creating this potential pain point if there were ever a problem.
There's a couple of places where that's true.
So
Yeah.
Well, it was also a financial thing. Remember the research and the work that we did on how much
Yeah.
more it would cost everybody individually by
Yeah.
not being able to use that road, which we still
Yeah,
have.
Terry had figured out how many extra miles it would be for every car trip to go around versus going through. You had to go up to Malvika Road and around, and it was
significant.
significant.
I bet it doesn't come out to how much it's going to cost to build a causeway.
That's true.
Yeah, but
And I bet
it is one of our only scenic ways, I mean, I don't think that there's anybody that's saying that, when push comes to shove and we really need to do something. But at that point, there was just conversation that it needed to be abandoned. And it's really one of the only places for anyone that lives on the east side of East Sound to drive by the water. If you're in Deer Harbor, you can go by the water in the West Sound Bluff. But, I mean, that is sort of like closing one in California. I mean, that's the big draw down there, is to be able to drive by the water. So there's a lot of people that aren't fortunate enough to live on the water, and that's the only time that they really get to do it. And I think just walking, saying that you can have a walking path, when we talked about, there was a big deal about having a park and having it closed completely, and it didn't go over very
If
well.
there's a time when we could engage with those who are coming up with potential solutions, we would love to participate.
Well, I think the first thing that's going to happen is that we're going to present the data on the coastal flooding, because I'm afraid that what we're going to have to tell you is that it's not our choice. The ocean's coming.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to suggest that at this point, we put that in our draft sub-area plan update, designate it as a special place. And when it comes time for the public to review that, then we can have that conversation.
Right.
Spirit.
So in May, you might have a little bit more of an update on times and when if it's coming out in
Yeah.
June, you'll know a little bit more at our next meeting.
I will probably, I don't know if I will know more at the beginning of May or not. What I know of, why I know June 21st is a target date for release of that first report, is because that's going to be, there's a meeting that's happened Department of Transportation Commission is coming. And so I asked Mike, will we have the data at that point? He said, yeah.
Okay.
So pretty sure, but that's going to depend again on the consultancy and making sure that we've got,
Great. Thank you.
but no, it's not. Yes, of course you have that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, super. Well, so oh yeah, we wanted to talk about a trans committee. And so thank you for coming, Margaret. And essentially, Cindy had asked us if, told us that there was a strong presence for trails on San Juan and Lopez, but that not on Orcas, and hoping that we could possibly, ask around and see who was interested and see if a citizens group could form about Orcas trails. And so, do you have any ideas?
Well, I have some history that I got from Colin. We certainly talked about a trails committee when I was on Eprc 4 or 5 years ago. But without leadership, someone to get it started, nothing happened. But Colin found in April of 2007, so we're talking 16 years ago, there was an Orcas Pathways Committee, and Kathy Faulkner was the representative. I don't know Kathy. Is she still on the island?
How do you spell her last name?
FAU, like William Faulkner, FAULKNER. I don't know her, but she was the one who presented to council at that meeting in April 2007. And she described that that committee had a mailing list of 300. Sure would like to get my hands on that. And a map of potential pathways. And I'm interested in this information just as a place to start. She also described as partners or possible partners, Public Works, State Parks, Orcas Park and Rec, Land Bank, Preservation Trust, the usual suspects, San Juan County Parks, Wapalco, the Orcas Chamber, the Port of Orcas, and the Visitors Bureau. So I'm not really interested in chairing this committee because I'm on 3 boards already. But I'm definitely interested in exploring ways, one, to find the interested people, including a leader, and 2, connecting with the active San Juan and Lopez groups so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So, and I'm thinking, well, how would we best do that? Orcas Run Away, Orcas Buy Sell Trade, the Orcasonian, the Sounder, just getting the word out. And a first meeting for all interested parties, just to describe some of what I described here, and see what the interested folks want to do with that, and see if a leader emerges. So those are my ideas thus far, and I'd be happy to help write up the media releases. To see, I think I think there'd be a number of not only older residents, but younger people who could energize the committee. Many people who weren't here 16 years ago, including me. There.
Margaret, I think I could help you with both of those things.
Okay, that's what we needed.
I know the leaders of both the Orcas and the San Juan and the Lopez
Okay,
Trails Committee, and I can put you in touch with them.
okay.
Really interesting, good people too, and very effective groups. I also have a personal list that I've been collecting of people who have
Mm,
basically made comments on various trail stuff, including Crescent Beach, in the social media. And I've just said, well, this person might be on a trails committee one day. I don't know most of these people personally, but I can certainly, give you their names or
That
communicate
would be
through,
terrific.
through Facebook.
Yeah,
And gee, it'd be nice to get that list of 300 people, wouldn't it?
I know.
Uh,
It was given, it could have been on a spreadsheet, but it
Yeah.
may have just been. on
Even if
paper.
some of these people were on a D list from back then, it's possible that they might have an old email. If you're like me, I archive things for.
Yeah, the only information I have is what was in the minutes for the council meeting where they
Yeah.
presented.
and
And I told you.
I'm personally in the same boat as you. I'd be glad to participate and help if I can, but I don't want to lead the effort. I could be liaison with the land bank in Orcas. And, one place to start, I think I mentioned this to you, is the county's new Ross plan, which is what, recreation, open space, and something I can never remember the other S. But I think it puts more emphasis on trails than the previous plan does. And some of that is on the roadside bike paths and so on with public works. Some of it is land bank, and I'm not sure the distinction is clearly made. No trails are specified, but we could figure that one out.
Yeah. I remember from that, this is kind of old news now, but I'm sure it hasn't changed. From that 2016 survey, consultants that the county brought in to see what people wanted, trails and water access were at the top. So it's politically, I can't imagine an issue. We just need to find the energy, and I'm sure it exists.
Yep.
I recognize Kathy Faulkner. She's been here for a while. She is on Facebook, so you could
I'll try.
message her.
Okay, thank you.
I think you might recognize her when you see her face.
Okay,
She's got long,
Okay.
long brown hair.
okay, good. Well, that gives us a start. So Brian and I will initial announcements.
Great.
I think there's an Orcas Island discussion too. Have you seen that group on
Or-
Facebook?
No,
It's either San Juan discussion, but I think there's an Orcas Island discussion group too.
is that a Gretchen
Yes.
Cramp thing?
What? No, it's just an
It's a Facebook group.
it's
It
just,
might be
Okay.
Clark Funding.
Oh, I know
I
Clark.
think that's right.
Orcas Island discussion group. Is it like terrifically political? We wouldn't, I don't know.
no,
No,
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
okay, well,
I don't
And
venture that.
I'm in touch with them too.
okay. Then you think that's, I know.
Well, that's great.
I'll participate.
Thank
too.
you.
Okay, thank you. So will you help with the press release and
Sure.
proof it at least in case we miss anything? Anybody else? Okay, well, that's three. That's good. Yay. Anything you want to add to this?
No, I'm hoping it'll take off and fly.
Yeah, and having the other groups as mentors would be so helpful.
Yeah.
If they would meet once.
I know this is probably a pie in the sky goal, but I do a lot of hiking vacations. One of my favorite things to do in the world. And if there were a way, and I would like to participate in this group, not as an organizer, but just as a participant. But if there's a way that we could connect trails that go on the boundaries of private land,
Yes.
that would be just golden. If you could get people away from the road to move from place to place, that would just be phenomenal.
When I had a grocery store conversation, you know, a lot of the politics happens at the market. With Brian a couple of weeks ago.
I think changes from ancient Greece, doesn't
He described those as cross-country trails, and I had asked Colin and Cindy, are you looking at roadside trails or trails through, you know, the wilder places? And they described both. And then I learned that the term is cross-country, is that right? Trails, the ones that aren't on roadside.
Yeah, or
So-
off-road.
Huh?
Or
Off-road?
off-road, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember you and Rick Hughes, when I was still at Eprc, they walked from Hoffbelt to about Nordstrom Lane or so.
Yeah.
He was working on easements for that. during
Land
that.
Bank is working on that trail now, which
Okay,
the idea is it would eventually connect Caulfield Farm with Turtleback, which is
wow,
almost all county land.
neat.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so lots of partners, this list of partners, which was about 10 or 12, would still be great partners.
Well, great. Well,
They're
thank
also
you
here.
for being willing to get that started. And I
My arm was twisted.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You were invited.
So, if we could move next to an update from San Juan County Public Works Director Colin Hunterberg. Colin, are you with us?
Yes.
I see his picture. I figured.
Oh, there he is.
Yep. Sometimes he gets on another thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
Hey, Colin.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be joining you. Some familiar faces. For those who don't know me, can you not hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
I said
Okay.
you're joining us from the new Beaverton building. So-
Yeah. Yeah. Don't mind I don't. What's behind me? Is it embarrassing?
Well,
Boxes?
I was just telling them about the new building, so.
Oh, yeah. So we're moving. My name's Colin. I'm your county engineer with the Public Works Department, and here to facilitate a conversation that Charles and Cindy wanted to have on a couple of things. I'm trying to pull it up here now. First one being school road proposal for earmark funding. Cindy, did you have a chance to talk about?
Talk about that, yeah.
Do you want to?
Sure.
Share.
If you want to pull up the map.
Yeah, I can pull that up while you.
We basically just went back to the school board on March 20th. I had COVID twice and dragged myself out of bed. That was my first public appearance. And Colin and I presented the plan that had been presented so many years ago, just to talk it back over with the school board, see what they thought of it. And they were, in principle, they're good with it. They just want to make sure that they've got, that if the money were to come to us, that they would be able to have a conversation about how the flow works, whenever that.
Could you walk us through this image?
Yeah. So basically, what you're doing is you're coming up Madrona, turning right, following that arrow around, and this is kind of what they're using right now. You go up, you drop your kid off on the side of the buildings, and then you come back around. And right now, what most people are doing is coming back to the Madrona stop sign and turning left to try to get out of the mess. Because if you go forward, you're coming into all of this slanted parking, and it's all the elementary school parents and kids. And so it's people backing out of slanted, of angled parking, and lots of little short people and no sidewalks. So it's a problem.
Yeah,
And
and-
so- yeah.
a number of years ago, the school district described a scenario that everyone's seen, look at the screen, I presume in the audience. Described pickup and drop off happening here, happening here, happening here and here, and then just this confluence of other maneuvers in this area, and it's just a real mess, especially in the winter months when it's dark. And I don't think there's any debate over the need to do something. And as Cindy was describing, School Road needs to kind of return to what it historically was when it was first established, was the road to the school. And East Sound kind of developed and pushed up onto the front, onto the boundaries of the school and onto School Road. I mean, School Road literally just went to the school. That was all it did. And so the plan that's on here is revisioning School Road primarily as access to the school and focusing on controlling circulation for vehicles so that there's less conflicts, so that pickup and drop off activities are more defined by basically limiting choices. That's the only thing we can do. When you limit choices, you can provide more structure to the flow of traffic. And then with good pedestrian crosswalks, good lighting at appropriate locations, especially for our shoulder seasons. And then, some beautification elements to make it nice. It's the gateway to one of the most important things the community has, is its schooling institutions. So this is the concept. That's all it is at the moment. And I was thankful that Cindy wanted to bring this forward again to the school board to remind them that this is what we have.
So this design, School Road is still two-way at the North Beach intersection.
Up to
Valley intersection, I mean.
This is Pine. So.
Right, I'm just want to make sure that, I guess
Yes,
it's slightly out of frame.
So
It's
this
still
is
two-way.
two-way?
Yeah,
This
Yeah.
is two-way?
no,
No,
That's
off-
one way.
Far left, like
off the map right
off the
now.
map on the left.
So
is
you're
School
moving
Road.
the
Yeah.
current parking that's
If you can see,
here to here.
if you can see, Charles, this
Yeah.
is going this way.
Yes,
That's going that way.
okay.
So
So Colin, this is your,
that's the handicap parking. This stuff
Okay.
that's been happening here is here.
so I guess I'm
Yeah.
concerned about this because I met with the engineer that wanted to look at what the rain garden was, what they established when they were doing all of the other
Okay.
Buck Park stuff. So you're talking about removing the rain garden
Yep.
and all the infrastructure that's underneath there to handle the water runoff?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, in any effort here is you're going to need to go big. I think we essentially the school in its last project, focused on other elements. There was a little bit of frontage improvements, but ultimately I think we were a little underwhelmed about how much it did to improve conditions running the school. And so we've been working with the school in a partnership for a number of years, and this is a significant project. The East Sound community is familiar with significant projects in the heart of East Sound. So you would need to do this right. You would need to go big, and we need to redo and repurpose a couple of areas. Yes.
Scott has a question. Scott, would you like to ask your question?
Colin, I was on the school board for quite a while and was part of the voting no on a couple of different occasions. And two things. Number one, the thing that really kept us from having district-wide support on all this was that this is all a great plan, but there wasn't any plan to maintain any of this in the future. Is this then become part of the county's maintenance program, or is this going to be left to the district?
School Road is a county road. So
Always has been, yeah.
right. So there's not a whole lot to maintain right there because there's not a whole lot of infrastructure. So when the county improves a county road, the county maintains the county road thereafter. There are
Well-
parts of this that will transition onto school property, and that was a question that Cindy and I received at the school board. It's a little bit unclear of where those boundaries exist on the east terminus of School Road and portions around here. So at some point, you're off the road and onto school grounds, and the school has groundskeepers that would maintain those elements. But the road itself, once improved, is maintained by county roads.
Okay, so just, the underwhelming part of why stuff wasn't done on all this was it was part of the original $35 million bond that we went out for that failed. And partly because of this, and we pulled all this stuff out of it and the bond passed, so just be aware of that. But in doing all that, the architects that we had and the civil engineers established that the county road stops just at the edge of the, essentially where the cafeteria is right there, perpendicular to that. Just for whatever that's worth. But that information is out there, Colin.
It's to the, you know,
And how this was, and how this was presented to the board and how this was presented to the community previously was a concept for funding. And so there are elements to this design which will be reopened to the public so that we get a community supported project. There are certain there's aesthetic elements, but there's also functional elements to how this works. But there's enough here on a general concept that I think has enough support to try to, and that's what Cindy is working on, is trying to find a way to fund this concept, understanding that some of the elements will need to be opened back up during design.
I'm surprised.
So Colin, I just have a question. Is it just because there's more land on the south side, why the parking is moved from the north side to the south side? Because the north side has the sidewalk and everything for unloading and safe. This way, they're on the other, unloading and everything is on the other side of the street.
No, the loading and unloading is in these 2 lanes here. It functions like most, I mean, if you've experienced pickup and drop off zones at other schools, I mean, most people don't, you want to minimize people pulling in and backing out where there's kids. So the
Right.
parking here is not really for pickup and drop off. Pickup and drop off happens, you pull up here, your kid pops out the car immediately onto the sidewalk on school grounds, doesn't have to cross the street or anything. There will be exceptions to that. And then once that activity happens, which should be really quick, once traffic is controlled, you would then merge back out into the other lane and get out and make this space available. So this is not normal pickup and drop off stuff. There may be kids with special needs or other issues where you'll need to have other, and how this is signed is one of those elements that we'd work with, whether this is short term or long term, or maybe there's some more disabled parking over here. But the pickup and drop off is primarily, it functions best with schools as a 2-lane feed through, not like pulling in and pulling out and pulling in and pulling out.
Colin, I have a question about, so, looking at this as sort of, 3 blocks. Between the far right block in front of the cafeteria, where there's the drive-through, and then the only way that someone who has just moved through that drop-off area can go is to the west. Why is there that little cinch right there? Why is that concrete?
This here,
Yeah,
this is no longer a pickup and drop off area.
Oh,
Yeah, then that's part of the problem, is the pickup and drop off area dumps you back
Yes.
out into the intersection now and causes. So the
okay.
pickup and drop off area is, is this only that area. This gets repurposed. There'll probably be a raised mountable curb in here. This will get bricked and there'll be lighting. At the time, the school district would consider this for special purpose loading. Maybe a bus would come up here during a day field trip or something. But general vehicle traffic is not coming into this area. There'll be accessible parking here, and this is more of a brick landscape area for special functions and special use.
So if I'm taking my kids, I'm coming up Madrona, I'm turning left, I'm driving down the blue side, right? Dropping my kids off, going out. I'm coming from high school or from North Beach Road.
You have to turn right on.
Fine, I can't go through that way.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a great plan. I'm thrilled to see this. This is really way better than whatever concept had been originally presented a few years ago in an EPRC meeting. This is really nice. I think you've done a great job with this.
Wow, thank you.
You see it, I just don't, I'm just kind of concerned about all the money and the function of putting that rain garden in and where all of that water is going to go that was filtered through there, if it's going to turn into a parking lot.
Yeah, well, I guess, Leith, I think the driving factor behind here is safety of the children of the East Sound community. And we will solve those other problems, which are fundamentally just engineering problems. We bring in qualified professionals in their disciplines, whether they're stormwater or lighting or landscaping, and we solve those things because we're interested in improving the conditions for the children. So the rain gardens served a function there. There was some question about its performance when it was initially installed. There was some bubbling, and anyway, it's a completely solvable engineering element, I guess, is what I want to impress upon you.
Okay. It's just that those are the things that we're trying to do in East Sound, is to create them. And I just find it's interesting that we created one and now we're taking it away.
Okay.
But I do think that this is much better than the other alternative that was proposed before.
Great.
I will agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So I actually have one more question, then I'll be quiet. I promise. So if you're coming out of Madrona, facing the school, and you're turning left, and you can go to the drop off your kids, you can also stay to the south side and park in those parking places, and then get out and go west, right?
Correct.
That all works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
great.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Ryan Page, parent of
Hey, Ryan.
Marcus Island Elementary student. And I thought that I would just.
Oh, Ryan, you dropped that.
Sorry about that. Somebody called me on the phone. So I just wanted to draw Colin's attention to something that I, just based on what my experience, goodness, go away. So Colin, you had just said that the drop-off area is going to be moved from that right area up to in front of the elementary school. But currently that area that you were just talking about getting blocked off, that's used for bus loading, not drop off and pickup of children. So if this is going away, and then the idea is that this would then be used for multiple cars to come and drop kids off and pick them up, then the bus drop off would have to be in a totally different place. And I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
No, this is still open to buses. This is
Okay.
open to authorized vehicles only. I don't know how the school district will want to appropriately sign this, but it's gonna feel different and look different than the rest of the road. Whether it's texture different or color different, the school will still use this, possibly for buses. But we got to get the general traffic out. And it's not, I guess, initially the traffic was meant to come here, but it was too chaotic and it's being pushed elsewhere. I know a lot of it's happening in the back. But
Gotcha.
I'm generally aware of what you're. Say what?
So that makes sense. I think I might have just misunderstood that this was going to be like closed off or be used for parking only, and I just wanted to warn you that
No, Yeah, this part here is open for school district, buses or,
And, which side of that section would a school bus or any other authorized vehicle enter?
They enter from down here.
They would be,
they could probably, because it's restricted access, I think the school could probably figure out whatever way they want to. I mean, there's like it's one bus or a couple buses and it's completely blocked off from other traffic. So I think the school can figure out which way they want to come and go from there that makes the most sense. The important thing again is to keep the general traffic. And this is one of the things that we'll talk about once the concept is funded.
I see. Yeah, I was just thinking that if a bus were to be coming from east to west and then have to continue west, that would be a strange turn. But
Mhm.
Most of them in the afternoon.
no, they
they're-
can't go down Shawnee.
They can't go down.
Oh, no, see, both lanes go north.
Oh,
Well, I think those are helpful comments. I think that until,
Yeah, yeah, we're not
until
gonna
and
solve any
unless
of
we
this.
get money.
Sure.
oh, so Madrona isn't two-way there?
That's correct.
It's one way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So,
the school bus would, the way this is drawn, it would come this way, drop off, and then feed out like everyone else.
does that start at Rose being one way then?
It depends.
I mean, because that means that those people and those businesses on there can't go south that
Yeah.
are on Madrona.
Where this transition happens, it can transition up to here, just like this. You see this two-way up all the way to here. Where
Okay.
this, there's a parking lot in here, and this can transition somewhere at some point. But I'm not, to be quite frank, I'm not worried about someone not being able to get to their doctor's appointment. And I feel like somebody's capable of getting their doctor's appointment navigating a one-way street. What I'm concerned about is the safety of the kids during the morning and afternoon pickup and drop offs. So I think people will adjust and accommodate change in traffic patterns along here. It may be different, but there's also opportunities to transition somewhere. Again, as Cindy wants, I really want to make this clear, is this is the concept.
yeah.
And
Well, really, we really appreciate you showing us this and looks great.
Yeah, it's much better than before.
Okay, so
Thanks, Colin.
yeah, thank you so much, Colin. Our next question for you is about we submitted this list of 5 trails, paths that we consider to be the most important in East Sound. And we were thrilled to find out from Dan that Opalco has a plan, not that it's an immediate plan, but they could prioritize a plan to vary power along Glover's Lane from the substation to Main Street. And so we're trying to think about one, how could we help? It's wonderful actually that Margaret Payne is here, who originally through EPRC, when she was on EPRC, helped get that funding for the section on Enchanted Forest. And we all know about the history of how that ended up losing that funding. But what we would love to know is how could we help in pursuing grant funding for the county? We understand that you would be applying for it, but if there's any legwork that we could do similarly to the way Margaret did in the past to help prep, do some grant writing for you, how can we help, since that's sort of our number one priority?
Cindy, do you have any comments on this or?
As grant writing for paths is concerned, I guess I'm concerned that for another year, probably maybe longer, I'm not sure what the what your staff is like. I mean, if we were to actively pursue grants, would there be the capacity to plan and or execute? I don't want to create the expectation that I don't want to go out for grant funding that we can't then follow through on and create a path.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, there is a capacity crunch right now with across the board with in this department, but just generally. But I thought the discussion preceding this just before I signed in was about forming another pathways committee that would prioritize and figure out where these things would go. Is it, Charles, are you saying you've already figured out where the?
So we created a list of 5 paths that we consider to be priorities in East Sound. We didn't look at the entire island. So there might be other priorities for other places, but in terms of our update of the sub-area plan, we wanted to have those priorities, and then I guess that's kind of leading into the next question that we had for you was we need to update the map that we have showing roadway and pathway priorities in East Sound because it's woefully out of date.
It's almost 35 years old now. I brought that to the attention of EPRC back when this was being chewed around in 12, 13, up through 15.
Oh.
But they never got opened back up. And so the ones you have adopted were drawn in 1990.
Yeah.
They don't, they show roads, they show Fern Street connecting over to Lover's Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very aware of how bad it is, and we want to fix it. And but we've had many discussions of areas where we would like to see new roads and to alleviate the pressure on the Tree Streets area coming down North Beach. How that could, how could we get a road that went south to Mount Baker or went east to Terrell Beach Road. Things that we consider priorities, but we didn't know if Public Works had different priorities or other priorities. And so we wondered how we could coordinate with you to come up with a new map that showed, a consensus of priorities for paths and roads in East Sound.
Well, if Cindy's all right with it, I mean, I would just take a felt marker on these things and start with from there. I don't know that we need to get any fancier than that, just to start the conversation. I concur that what you're working with was a vision, and many of the elements in that I think we've long since walked away from. I don't think we're building a road across the East Sound Swale anymore.
Well, so if we can agree to a map and start with that marker and send that to you. Can you tell us what you think is feasible, problematic, in fitting with your ideas for traffic flow?
we've got sitting here too. We've got a long-term planner in the room.
I'm sorry, what, Cindy?
I said Brooke is with us as well. Brooke Sullivan, who is one of our long-term planners. So, because this is sounding like real, like it really belongs in that whole comprehensive plan update.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was pulling this up. I mean, these are the maps you got.
That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
Sub-area plan.
These are your currently adopted maps.
I know.
So
We're as horrified as you are.
Yeah, well, I facepalmed this 8 years ago and I gave up. I mean, nobody wanted to touch them at the time, and I just said, okay. So,
Well, one big, sort of pain. Yeah, we're updating the whole sub-area plan goals document right now, or we're, working on proposed updates. We're not updating it. And so we're gonna be, we need to have all of these maps updated. A pain point that is still kind of up in the air is what happens at the end of A Street. And it just sort of kind of dead ends into the parking lot for the athletic center. And there's going to be a lot of development on that corner. There are active plans to put in a lot of residential units in that lot just to the north. That's directly west of the post office. And we are also concerned that in this process, there are lots of footpaths that go through this private property, and there's no really active right-of-way that specifies that, some of those paths can be there. So we've talked to Clyde Duke and April Duke, and they're amenable to setting aside some right-of-way. But we're also wondering, it's just doesn't seem like the best practice for us to have A Street just come to an abrupt halt. And there's been discussion of pushing that through to the north. We've had talks about that being a roundabout. And so
I have studies on both of those, and I think even a third one that I could dust off at one point, and about the A Street terminus and turning it around and connecting north as because going west has been abandoned essentially.
Right.
So the process then, what you're saying is you want to just hand him what EPRC has come up with for an update. Have him vet it before it becomes a formal proposal.
Yeah, we don't want to put
Right.
anything on this map that you say, no way in hell, So, so if we can put those possibilities there, and then, have you say, yeah, yes, maybe, or maybe no, then we'll update our map accordingly.
Yeah, we had those conversations before the 15th about A Street and Orion and that whole area, but nothing ever got adopted in the last sub-area plan in 2015, and I can't remember why it was never pushed through. And Dan, you've been on this committee off and on. I don't know if you can remember.
I'm struggling to remember why.
I remember,
Comprehensive plan was all in process. I mean, it seemed like every time we were trying to do certain things, it was like, well, we have to wait for the comprehensive plan to finish. We have to wait for the comprehensive plan to finish.
I know that at least one property owner was not happy with the idea of angled parking in front of his business. So I don't know if that was
Also, that land at the time was privately owned. It was later, you probably remember, Colin, it was later offered to the county. It's adjacent to Public Works. And county turned it down. So the plan was never essentially accepted.
Well, so I guess,
I can remember.
oh,
So-
Margaret can remember.
So we had explored north through Orion Lane, south, it would have to be right of ways for people's property through Craig Nelson and the athletic center, I think. And that wasn't popular with the property owners at the time. And the most viable solution, I had said over my dead body, I can remember for Orion Lane, just because it's a pretty sleepy neighborhood and also the low-income housing. And I didn't think that was fair to create a arterial, well, not quite an arterial, but it get a lot of traffic. So I think that the most popular was a roundabout there, where the post office meets the athletic center. I understand that a credit union has bought the post office and is gonna be doing some work there. The whole parking situation, where you go in so far at the post office and then back out a little ways, turn around. I'm guilty myself of doing that, is just a nightmare. So, working with those property owners would be a really good time.
Paul Kamen drew a map
Yeah,
of the first 20 cars that he saw. He sat there and had a cup of coffee, and he drew a map of the directions that all those cars went.
it was wild.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it looked like you'd mapped the last, 20 years of hurricanes. It was just like people were all over the place. So it's not.
When is the plan to develop the post office? Does that have any dates on it?
I don't know, but that was always one of the concerns about building the roundabout
Yeah,
because the problem with the traffic is the post office, but the post office is leasing that building and is not necessarily a permanent home for it. So, what happens if you build a roundabout and then the post office moves, then there's no need for the roundabout. So.
Well, I think that would be on the private portion of it, though. And April Duke attended this committee meeting last month and talked about a future development plan. I think not too far future there.
Hmm.
So that plan might actually make the roundabout live. And I think this is a good time to include that.
Yeah, I think we need to look at all options, for that. I mean, we were, part of that thing was also, looking at that outlet on Orion as well. And so, which is also an inlet coming into town. So it keeps people gets people off of Main Street. So I think we need to look at all of the options and as far as the town growing, which is.
So it seems to me that the only two options that are really viable right now are going through to, I always forget the name.
right.
Orion, going through to Orion or roundabout. But is there a viable option to go south?
If to make this, I would just offer, if you wanted to put this on a future agenda and Cindy wanted to, I could dust off these. There's work on this and I could find it. I can't find it right now, but I'm sure I can find it. And it's much easier to be more productive if we build off the previous work rather than start fresh. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll take you up on that, Colin. Thank you very much.
Is there anything that we can do to help with the conversation when we get back together that we can do on our end?
Before we meet again and talk about the end of A Street?
And just this, yes.
I would just, I'm just offering to show what has previously been discussed by previous EPRC members, and you can just pick it up from there. I don't think there's anything you need to do.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
my next steps on this issue is I'm gonna come up with a map, and we're gonna discuss it next month. And then if we like that map, then we're gonna send it to you as a potential new map for trails and roads. And then we'll see if and when you can find that old work, when would be a good time for you to come back and share it with us.
Okay.
June?
Great.
Or do you want
shall we maybe aim for June on that? 2 months from now?
For A Street, I don't know why you meet once a month?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do any work on that. I'm just gonna find my files. Like I said, I'm kind of a little scattered right now, moving and everything, but we can talk about A Street at Cindy's pleasure next month.
Okay, great.
Colin, this is Brian. Can I mention one more thing to you about maps in general? And I don't know whether this is your bailiwick or not. It's probably a GIS thing, but a lot of the maps, both in the old sub-area plan and in the current county comp plan, are well, they don't show major roads. And it makes them very, very difficult to read and to orient ourselves, where we're looking for. So it seems to me it'd be to Public Works advantage as well as to ours to show roads clearly on that map. And so I hope that you will help us lobby for that.
I concur. And if I was publishing these maps, I would be insistent. I have a trouble, even just your sub-area plan. Sometimes it's hard to orient myself.
Okay,
Well, thank you. We'll keep pushing for that.
But yeah, I don't produce those maps, but I will help. I
Great.
concur.
Limited, which is
okay.
not there.
Okay, so our last item, Colin, is Andrea Cohen is here today, and she lives near the road end of North Beach Road. And she had told me that in the summer especially, there's all the people living there and neighborhood people who come down to the water at sunset and such have witnessed a lot of misuse of the beach there, which includes people not respecting the wildlife there and taking things from the beach and parking in areas that are not designated as parking on North Beach Road and the side streets, sort of crossing onto the path, and digging areas out in the sand for them to put down their tents and or awnings. And so,
Camping, you said.
yeah, and camping and fires. And so she was asking if there was a possibility of putting up some friendly, informative signage that could ask people to only park in designated areas, to not take things from the beach. A variety, a list of sort of good neighborly requests. And since this land is not owned by or not managed by anybody besides Public Works, we thought we would ask you about that. And then Lee had some information about a previous request.
I remember, Colin, I don't remember how long ago, was it a year and a half ago when you were doing marine signs for all of because we wanted one for no garbage receptacle at Madrona Point for the docks, and then it was a whole county-wide thing. So I kind of thought that this signage for North Beach could be included in all of that, but I never have heard what happened with that program.
These signs,
Aha.
those are the only ones I install. And if they don't exist on North Beach, I'm happy to install them.
Okay.
But beyond this, I would need to circle back with, I like to have a policy or some kind of program that council supports when I roll something out, and I don't like to do one-off things. It gets kind of complicated. But these signs, this is already an adopted thing we do. And if these signs don't exist on North Beach, and I can't recall, I can get them installed.
Colin Tyler in Environmental Stewardship was talking about a guy over in Port Townsend who does some sort of interpretive panels and beach signs and does it for every place all over the country. And they might have something that would be appropriate. And we could talk to Kendra about how that kind of, where that gets funded, or
Yeah.
MRC thing, or what that would be.
Cindy, are you talking about along the veins, like what's down at Orcas Landing where the old fuel cells are, those kind of artistic, interpretive things that have a little bit of history and some cultural elements to it? And
Well, it sounded like he was doing those, but it also sounded like he was doing signs that were instructional about how to treat the beach as well,
Well, I don't know.
like how to
That's
behave.
exactly what you need.
yeah, if you're interested in doing something like that, I think we should pull in environmental stewardship and have them
Yeah. I think
figure out the good tone to do that. If we're talking about like the private public property transition and marking that, then I'm these signs are, I think, is what we do. This is what you see around the county.
Would those work to do?
Well,
what you
the sign on the right already is there.
Yes. That's on the
Although
beach.
people don't really, especially on the smuggler's side, but on both sides, they don't, they go,
Yeah.
they don't really do much.
want.
The sign on the left, I haven't seen, that isn't there. I guess what I had in mind was, first of all, not just signs, because there's already a proliferation of signs there. Although when it comes to signs, the signs that the land bank has put down at Crescent Beach, I think are excellent. I think they do a really good job in a lovely tone of explaining that this is a natural area, that there is wildlife here, and then goes into some detail about the things that you shouldn't be doing there.
But
I
they're
mean, I would
talking about
love
a
to be
pretty
able to.
big area. I mean, we're talking about the width of the road out here,
Well, that's
as far as.
still
But
40 feet, and you can pack 100 people on that beach easy.
more than that, really,
Yeah.
it's really the change in the use of that beach over the last few years is extraordinary. I mean, I think people are coming to the island in greater numbers, and they're coming to an island and they assume there's beach for them. And that's what they turn up. That's what they get sent to is North Beach. And the numbers of people, I mean, it looks like a New York City beach on some days there. It's crazy.
I'm wondering if that's something we should take to the Visitors Bureau, is for tourist management, is education that Orcas is not the right place to come if you're looking for a sandy beach.
But it's there's a lot of islanders that go out there as well.
Yes.
Yes.
So watching the sunset.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
tons of islanders that go out there to watch the sunset every
Right.
night
I don't,
in the
I don't
summer, so
think-
I
I
don't
mean,
know that it's.
I don't think the islanders are the problem. I mean, maybe the occasional one. But I think when I see it's the people that come out in a van and are planning to spend the night. And
Yeah.
then they've got a fire, and they've got, they've got the deck chairs, the lawn chairs.
Well, and you've got people spending the entire day with coolers and radios and paddle boards. You've got the organized group tours like Backroads, the bike tour and the kayak tour people
Yeah,
who are parking those enormous trailers there and sometimes,
overnight.
right, sometimes leaving them there for a couple of days, and they're not putting them in parking spots. They're just putting them on the road.
Because you're doing sushi. So.
Yeah, so it's, it's a kind of a crazy scene there.
So there's a couple different issues there. They're the ones that are using it to launch their kayaks to go to Clark and Barnes and Susha and Mesha and Tatus and wherever. I mean, there's multiple uses
Yeah,
for a very small area.
And I was coming today, and I want to say that I'm not representing a group. I wish I were, because I wish there were one, but the densest neighborhood on the island doesn't have a neighborhood association, which is a problem. But, I know what I've observed. I know what the people who live near the beach experience. And that's why I was hoping that either this group or the land bank or the county or somebody, and I was writing down as you were talking, just kind of things like environmental stewardship department, things I hadn't heard of before. That I just want somebody to look after this little piece of nature because it's, it's a special place, just like Crescent Beaches, but
Yeah.
on a zip drive,
Yeah.
So I was just hoping that I might be able to be involved in the start of somebody looking at this and seeing, everything about it. Let's see what can we do here to make it safer for the environment and also function better for people and parking in
Well,
the neighborhood.
it sounds like just for starts, in addition to the signage that Colin offered, maybe some signs along the road edges, away from the beach toward you.
Because then the sheriff's department can,
Yeah.
then they can be involved and do that. So I guess maybe we could look at some individual things. There is no overnight camping. I mean, we can't really, I don't know if there's anything. You can do.
Well, there's one very small rusting sign that says no overnight camping, but unfortunately, if somebody parks a van in front of it, you can't see it anymore.
So
But that's
make
still
sure
something.
that Colin heard that's important. We need a new one.
Yeah, it's, the trouble is, you want people to know this and know this and know this, and if you turn it into all signs.
Yes.
That's why I think a more comprehensive look at it is probably a good idea. But, this really kills me to do because I really don't want to be the grumpy old lady of the street.
Yeah.
But I've had to call the sheriff a number of times because people pull in big RVs to start, bringing up the awning and everything else. And just sort of like, oh, great camping spot this.
Yeah.
So
Those are things that the sheriff's department can help us with. So, but we have to have the signage for them to be able to enforce it. So, actually, Colin, if we.
Well, I was going to ask really quick.
Well, I just have one quick question for him. So is there anything that we can do about a sign at the dock at Madrona Point saying no, I don't know, you and I talked about the language forever, no refuge available, no whatever,
Refuse collection,
no refuge collection, or I can't remember how we said.
garbage receptacles.
Is there anything that since we're coming into summer,
be careful.
I'm sorry, any sign that the county currently has?
I'm not aware of a sign like that, but I'm also not aware of any reason why the county can't put up a sign like that. But I would need, like I mentioned, if we're talking about one-off things, I need to get guidance from the council about how they want to handle something like that and whether or not it's a program or it's just a special case. But I'm generally just not in the business of, responding without a policy.
Okay, so Cindy, the problem is that in most marine facilities, when people dock and then they come in and buy groceries or shop, there is a receptacle there, which is not what we really want. We don't want a receptacle for them to do it, but what they are doing is they're taking their garbage and then they're putting it in the business garbages in town or leaving sacks of garbage alongside the dumpsters because now most of the business owners have locked them.
Mhm.
So they all of a sudden take their garbage thinking there's going to be a receptacle. They walk into town and they're not going to carry their garbage back to their boat. They're going to leave it.
So you want a sign at the marine
They just-
facility saying no,
There's no
there's
receptacle.
no garbage.
In
There's
town,
no garbage receptacle at the
Yeah.
dock.
at this dock or in town.
Well, I don't think they take it off.
So, I was a graphic designer for many years, still do it every now and then. And I would be really happy if needed, to be involved in creating some signage for the beach areas. And I would love for it to be, related to your signs. I see you, but the land banks preservation trust signs because they do really well. And I think, I really believe that when you have kind of continual graphics, colors and typefaces that people see here and people see there, then, it starts to connect, it starts to make sense. So, I hear what you're saying, that there's a need at that location. And then we have needs over here, and then, there's other, these roads that end at beaches where you have these 40-foot wide beaches. There's, I don't know how many there are, but there's a number of them.
Number of road ends.
Yeah, road ends. There we go. And, some of those communities may have, I know there's like one at Buckhorn. They may have some similar issues.
North Beach is really the hotspot.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
much bland.
But, anyway,
We got them all over the
if I
county.
need
So,
it,
so it's
I'm happy to help. with that.
yeah, we've got them all over the county. So what I'm hearing is an issue that I need to float with council and with Mike to figure out how best to address it. Because in my mind, it goes to Kendra's department and they work in concert with Colin but only because Colin's road ends. So that's, he's where you put the sign. But as far as what signs are needed and where, then that becomes environmental stewardship, which also Kendra also works with the Visitors Bureau. So that becomes, an issue. Maybe they can get involved in terms of voter education about what to expect out here, because there's not a lot of pump out facilities either. So, yeah.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That would be
it
great.
definitely is needed, and it would be really nice to have cohesiveness with the,
Yeah.
so when you see that sign, it's the same sign. And
Okay, well, we're in the interest of time. I think we should move on. Thank you very much, Colin, for all of your input, and we'll
Nice
be
to
in
see
touch
you.
soon.
Thank you,
Thank
Colin.
you.
Poor man. You look like you've been moving.
Okay,
Thank you, Margaret.
yes, thank
Yes,
you,
thank you,
Margaret.
Margaret.
All right.
Nice,
Bye.
nice hanging out with you guys again.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Anytime. haven't done
So next, I would like to welcome Jason Bradshaw from East Sound Sewer and Water District. And
Hi all, Jason Bradshaw. I'm the general manager for your East Sound Sewer and Water District. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm not exactly sure where to start with this because I don't know everybody's level of knowledge in regards to what we do. So I think I'll just start there. So we are the sewer and water district. We are your sewer purveyor within the UGA and then a little bit outside of it for what's grandfathered in. We have been around on paper, actually, we've been around since the 50s. We were the water district. And I actually just found the other day the vote to have our water district as the water purveyor did not pass in 1954, September 14th of 1954. Then the water users became a thing shortly after. And so they are your water purveyor and we are your sewer purveyor. In the early 80s, the EPA and I believe the Department of Transportation actually stepped in and basically told the East Sound area that, hey, you guys really need to look at this. You have way too many leach fields on top of your aquifer. And we've seen these elsewhere and they've destroyed their aquifers. There were case studies and everything. So that's how we became about. The water district was brought back from paper only. They still own the water rights. And then under RCW Title 57, we became a water and sewer district, and we built a wastewater treatment facility right next to the port, just east of the port, pretty much surrounded by port property. It was upgraded, basically expanded to double the capacity in the very early 90s. And then we have been operating with basically the same equipment since then. We've done minor upgrades to handle our solids in a better way. And so now we are to the point, just like many other people across the entire United States, we need an upgrade. Not only do we need an upgrade, not only for our aging infrastructure, But also we are hitting our limits. We actually initiated this process in 2018, kind of got slowed down a little bit. There were some things that happened in 2019, and so it got slowed down a little bit, but that's actually kind of a good thing in the grand scheme of things, because in 21, we were hit with a new permit called the Puget Sound Nutrient Reduction Permit. Now, this is more of an investigative permit, and we're really collecting data and understanding our impact and the other 57 treatment facilities that dump into the sound. And so we're kind of ahead of the game a little bit, because we're going to incorporate those nutrient reduction requirements in this upgrade. We actually went out to bid January 5th, and we opened bids February 22nd, and I just sent, our commission just awarded the bid at a special meeting last week, and so we are on, we are go. The bids, just like many other people in our community are seeing, came back rather high. Luckily, though, we were able to secure SRF funding, so the state revolving loan. And also we were able to, I'd like to thank the community, because we had many people within the UGA respond to an income survey. Well, that income survey, I believe we did it in 20 or 21. I have to double check on that. But thank you for the community for filling those out. That income survey literally allowed us to take what's going to be a $20 million project by the time it's all said and done, down to we're at about 12.8 with all the grant funding that we'll receive from that. And it was very much a result from that income survey. So thank you, everyone, for participating, because those are kind of weird.
Thank you for
they're not
applying for
always
the grants.
Yeah, well, and that's why I said we had really good news a couple of weeks ago. They told us we were not going to be able to do our phase one pretty much is all the way done minus building it. And we were told that we were not going to be able to go back and redo the numbers. But because of that survey and because we didn't take no for an answer, they redid our calculations, and it went from a pretty much $9 million loan to about a $11 million loan. But of that, $4 million will be forgivable. And then we were projecting for our phase two. So that's where I get that $20 million. And so we're actively pursuing grants. That was kind of at the state level where we got those. Our next venture, hopefully the community support, is getting, actually you discussed one, an earmark, except in our specific one is called a STAG. They did these number of years ago, actually in the 90s when we were doing a lot of these projects, kind of went away, and now they've brought it back within the last few years. And so we will be actively pursuing that this year. One of the major components of that is community support. So I'd love to speak to many of you on this board, Cindy as well, the county, and just getting that letters from the different entities supporting the project and understanding the need for it for our community and how important it is. The more of those types of letters and the community support we get, the more likely we are to get some federal funds. And those are real good because they don't mess with state funds. So it's completely separate. So it'll be a very good thing for the community. So we're actively pursuing that. It's an expansion. It's large. It's needed. We have to have it. And also I with this one, it's nice because we're also looking at what we're doing to the sound and really reducing and making sure that our treatment facility is not contributing to the nutrients within the sound and subsequently the salmon kill offs and that kind of thing. So making sure that we're not a contributor, that we're just helping. So with that, I would love to, I mainly want the Q&A here.
Yeah.
That's kind of the broad brush stroke there, but I'd stand for any of your questions.
Are the nutrients primarily nitrogen?
Yeah, nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, that type of thing. And so what we're doing is we're actually, we're mirroring our two cells. So without getting in the weeds here, we have two treatment cells, the 80s, the 90s, and then 2023, we'll be putting in an identical one, but the components within will have an additional level of treatment that will reduce nutrient reduction. And it all has to do with oxygen or no oxygen kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I think something that came out recently from the sewer that I read, it was saying that what now will come out, that effluent that comes out from this new one is basically what it's not potable, Yeah, but it is irrigate, you can use it for irrigation.
Yes, ma'am. So yes, that's a great question. Good thing that we did or we're doing. So we a few things with that. We've transitioned from with this upgrade, it will transition us away from chlorine injection. So we will no longer use chlorine for disinfection. We'll use UV light, which is very effective. I've had many of those things, and so that kind of sets us up for exactly what you're talking about. So that way we could potentially in the future utilize our 80 to 100,000 gallons a day for a beneficial use, whether it be a purple pipes project is what what we usually call purple pipes. So reuse where you can literally plumb it. I've done one where we did it just to our facility itself. So all of our wash down was we were reusing water. So we helped that with the idea that maybe we would extend it elsewhere later when we had community support. So that definitely, this project sets us up for something like that in the future, most definitely.
Great.
Or, one of my commissioners, you may know Stolmeyer, Mike Stolmeyer, he has a dream of a salmon hatchery. Because one of the first things he took me to was the Long Live the Kings, in which that's an amazing thing. If you have an opportunity, please volunteer. But he took me there because it's the same amount of water that we produce daily at our facility.
Wow.
So wouldn't that be neat, right? A walkable salmon hatchery right next to the port. But anyways, I'm just throwing that out there. Sorry, Cindy. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot. There'd be a lot. But it allows those types of things, those pipe dreams.
Tell me about your water
potentially-
temperature
Yeah.
and habitat.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts.
Yeah.
But even it allows that.
I love the
possibility.
creative thinking. And there's also so much landscaping.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have a policy question,
Sure.
and it's about the fact that, I mean, we all know, we've all been told that for the Growth Management Act, that you're only supposed to service the urban growth area.
Yes.
Where is that written, and is that set in stone? Because it seems as if we've got all of these polluting septic tanks just outside.
Just right there.
And it would be so good for our aquifer if that could be overcome. And surely the state would want us to do that in some way. Department of Ecology, she says no. They don't want you to do that.
Really?
So this one is a sticky one, if you will, because there was a lot of pushback from the community when we were first adopted. I mean, naturally, you typically a wastewater treatment facility comes with the community. Right, our community happened, and then we were told we needed a wastewater treatment facility. So that's a hard pill to swallow. And plus,
Was expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive. That type of infrastructure is rather expensive. Now, I could show you the numbers on how much on-site systems are versus what ours costs, and it's actually not more expensive. But especially now with the increased on-site requirements, those things are getting elaborate where you literally need a Wi-Fi connection to be able to have your on-site system. So, but very good. So there are a few areas outside the UGA that we do serve, but they were grandfathered in. They'd already pretty much reserved their capacity. Mainly it is, and I am not going to get the name of this subdivision correct, but it is east on Bartwood. Thank you, sir. Yes, Bartwood Estates is prepaid. So when that development went in, this is before the UGA was even a thing. They paid for their entire development. And so all those parcels are on ours or ability to be on ours. I believe there's a few that don't have buildings on them yet, but if they do, they're allowed to connect to our system, being grandfathered. I believe it's the comp plan. I don't know exactly. I've been told, but essentially it's the county that you would have to go to for that type of question.
It's the state is what happens. Yeah. And what happens is whether or not you are a rural area or whether you are part of the UGA depends on what kind of services are offered. And so as soon as you start to put sewer into an area, it's no longer or rural
I
areas.
see.
But there are, right, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but kind of out there on Blanchard Way.
Mhm.
Is Blanchard actually on the sewer?
So if you're, let me get oriented right. If you are west of Blanchard, no,
West of Blanchard?
yeah. But if you're east, yes.
Yes. So, but then not all, so it was always my understanding that there were some that didn't connect. And but if their system fails and they're within so many feet of whatever, they have to connect.
That's correct.
Right?
Per county code, if they're within 200 feet of our system, and their on-site system fails, then the county kicks it over to us. They're required to connect to us. But
And that's only on the east side of Blanchard, correct?
yeah,
That's this
yes,
side.
we do have some at the very end on the west side of Blanchard,
Oh, okay,
Bunny Lane specifically.
okay,
But they are 200 feet out,
okay,
so it's a
yeah,
catch-22 type thing. Yeah.
okay.
Jason, just to follow up Charles' question, and what you said about Bartwood, because I think I know where Charles was going. Between you and Bartwood,
Mhm.
there's a parcel of land, a couple of parcels of land,
Quite a few.
one of which was, well, big ones.
Yeah.
One of which was recently bought by Opal,
Yes.
and they're
I'm
going to
aware.
have extensive housing development. I hope extensive housing development there. What's it going to take for them to connect to the sewer, the existing sewer, beyond annexation into the UGA?
Yeah, that would be the question for your county commission. And I believe it's like Cindy was saying, it's the state UGA or State Growth Management Act that really determines all of that. I don't think it's impossible. I just think there would be some work to do there to get that to happen.
But the county recommends and I believe approves boundary changes, annexations into the UGA. I wouldn't say all the time, but they do.
Sure.
So
And that's the comp plan process, you know how it works.
Yeah.
It's the land capacity analysis,
Right.
it's all of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what has to happen. If what you're talking about is how do you push the UGA boundary? If you're asking me how you could put in a sewer without pushing the UGA boundary,
You can.
well,
Yeah.
that sewer is theirs, so I'm not really talking about that. But that can happen via the annual docket process, isn't that right?
which thing?
Boundary changes of the UGA.
Boundary changes the UGA? I don't know the answer to that
And-
question.
I'm certainly
Yeah.
not recommending boundary changes
Yeah.
to the UGA. I think we are generally opposed to that, except that's going to happen at some point for, as you know.
Yeah.
For Opal. And, across the way from Opal to the south, there's the whole back woods of Mount Baker Farm.
Sons,
And the
the-
Water Users Association.
Mhm.
Oh, is that theirs too? Okay.
Yeah, they have a well there.
Okay, so there's definitely potential for stuff to happen there. It's gonna happen.
I just wanted to ask, is everybody okay with going about 10 minutes over today?
Yeah, I have to be at church at 5:30.
Okay, all right,
oh,
all right, that's our goal.
Monday,
Okay.
Thursday.
Oh, yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
I do.
Oh, great.
So thanks for coming today. The footprint of the new development, is it, I mean, the new development, is it within the footprint of what's there now? Have you bought other property alongside of it? And will it be any more exposed to the neighborhood than what we see now?
Great questions. We are surrounded by port property mainly, so I mean, we're exposed to the port if you're on there from all sides. So I guess the exposure would be about the same. And in the first question, was,
Did you?
Was,
Ah.
is it developed within your existing footprint?
yeah, it is. We did purchase 10 feet of property just to the south of the port property. Thank you, Port. For setback purposes. So no, it's going to be on the same parcel, but we'll have 10 feet extra of setbacks. So
It's pretty much surrounded by hangars.
yeah, we're surrounded by hangars. It's actually, we pursued purchasing land close to us. It would have been in our best interest and it would have made our construction cheaper, but we were unable to do that. And so we are limited to the footprint of our parcel as it exists now.
And this is all new, a new tank and so on and so forth. You're not upgrading what's already there.
It's a two-phase project. The first phase is for expansion, as we desperately need that because we are not hitting we are not making compliance in some months. And then phase 2, which will happen immediately following phase 1, will be the rehabilitation of the 2 existing cells. And not only rehabilitation, but it will also add nutrient reduction capabilities to those cells as well.
Because you're going to put solids into the third one to be able to empty the one to refurbish it, right?
That is correct. Yeah. Right now, our 2 cells are at capacity. We cannot run on just one. And so most months we can run on 2. Some months we are out of compliance because those 2 cannot handle it. So if we add a third and we also are implementing where hopefully much later in the future, we will have the ability for a 4th as well. And the infrastructure is built in such a way that it can accommodate that 4th one very easily.
Will there also be any need to do any upgrades, expansion, extension, whatever, of the affluent lines out into the out north?
We don't anticipate that. Those have actually been, I can't quote the year right now. It's something I have to look up, but we did do some work on that not too long ago. And the effluent line that goes, that you can actually see from the beach there has been rehabilitated within the last 10 or 15 years.
So there are no plans to extend it any further?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
It goes out like 150 feet, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a ways.
It is.
Just like to say as a user that if you do a purple pipe plan, I will be the first person to sign up.
Excellent. That is good to hear.
Be the second.
That is very good to hear. That is excellent. I would love to have community support with that because it would be it would be costly. I mean but it would be a major benefit.
Talk to the county as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Okay. Yeah.
It ought to be Parks and Rec and for Buck Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the more from a district perspective, an operation perspective, the more we use, my limits start to kind of fade away. And it becomes easier because especially if we could do some type of wetland remediation or something that this feeds into before we use it somewhere as a beneficial use. I mean, there's all sorts of ways we could do it, but everything we do for a beneficial use helps our permit limits.
Right.
And so it's just a help all around.
How much water do you anticipate you could produce?
We produce at least 80,000 gallons a day.
Okay.
At least, yeah. And that it just keeps going up.
So I think when you get to a point where you're needing letters of support, if
Yes.
you could contact Charles, then we could get that to you, and then we could also, I could help with, getting others,
Oh, that'd be excellent. Yeah.
and maybe we could get several people
Yeah.
to sign
Mhm.
a letter,
Absolutely.
of not necessarily East Sound Planning Review, but just as community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be really willing to help
Thank
do
you so
that,
much.
so.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will definitely be reaching out.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was very.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Ask him.
Anytime.
I heard a rumor you were
Let's
talking
Charles.
about joining the club.
All right. See,
Yes.
got me.
Okay.
Put my arm behind me.
I'll get your other.
Jason, could you answer one more question
Yes,
from
of
the
course.
public? Yeah,
Oh,
thanks.
thank you.
Okay.
I'm a user and I owned my home until 3 years ago. And I have learned that as a renter, I cannot get any relief. And that I was told was not your policy, but it's some state or something. Is that's it? I mean, there's no,
Yeah, that is a great question and definitely a concern of ours.
Yeah.
Because that is the rule set that we're given for the program of low income, of what we call low income rates. It has to be to the property owner, and that's what we're restricted as. But I have been hearing inklings of other agencies that do help renters and others. And I have it written down at my office of the agency that last contacted me. And so there may be some other help out there. And get your name afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can maybe forward you
yeah,
something.
because there's so many
I'm
of
not-
us. I mean, there's thousands of us who are
Yeah.
renting in this area.
Right.
All stuck.
Yeah, and there are other resources. I don't have any
Sure.
experience with them firsthand, but I would love to help any way we can.
Great.
Thanks for that.
Hey,
Okay, well, let's move on to, we were going to review the sub-area plan, goals and policies today, but we don't have time. And I mean, after looking at, what, Brian worked on for a reordering of the goals, policy and adding a housing component to goals. I think that we're gonna have to have another special meeting.
yeah.
And so if maybe instead of discussing those policies right now, we could talk about when anyone would be available for a special meeting to discuss, to try to get this hammered out. And I think we could also add on, maybe if we have time, we could work on that map for Colin about.
Yeah, we just would have to, we just would have to list on those two items.
Those two items, sure.
Do we have a base map that we could work from? Or do
Well,
get one
we
from
have the one that's
planning?
on there now, and then we can use Polaris, and we can make marks on Polaris,
We can take the,
but we don't.
we can take
Like a big
the,
format.
Oh, I can get one of
well,
those.
we have
You know,
those,
okay.
That would be the best.
we have
Okay.
those big ones that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
made. Would those work?
I think so. The only thing is that we probably don't want to have the comprehensive plan colors on there.
Well,
If we-
those
They're not
ones
there.
that, not on the one when we did the individual property
Okay,
owners.
yeah, that would be.
I'll
perfect.
show you, we can figure it out.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. So.
We might
would-
need to make a new one.
Right.
I haven't digitized on my computer, so maybe we might need a fresh one, because
Yeah,
we had them for different projects that we were doing, so maybe I could get you to print one.
Well, I'd offer ours up, but our printer is about as good as a boat anchor right now. So
Oh, okay.
we're looking at a new one.
All right, well,
So, sorry.
so
darn.
what kind of
Yeah.
availability does anybody have to meet? Needs to be.
I'm here till forever.
Scott, do you
I had
have
a retirement
any,
seminar yesterday.
anything so being out of, in the next 2 weeks, it being,
Well, I'd be pretty much good other than work.
okay,
What time of day, Scott?
I prefer afternoon.
Afternoons,
okay, so what we did before, we did.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did, what did we do?
4 p.m.
That would work.
We did 4, could we do it could we do it with that really nice desk at a
Yeah.
Do you guys have to give Sally notice so she can post
Yes.
24 hours before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
But we,
And
and we
we'll
also
have a
have,
public comment time, time period. And the last time we had Bill Bangs and John Campbell attend.
Yeah.
But
it has,
they didn't
it
really.
has to be on Zoom, so.
Yeah,
Clear except for Wednesday.
okay, no Wednesday.
It's next week.
Okay,
I can't do 17th and 18th. But on that next week, the 10th, next week,
I do yeah.
That kind of broke up, Scott. What was that?
I said, I am gone actually the 20th and the 21st.
okay. So next week,
What about Monday, the 17th?
no,
No.
no, board meeting,
What about Friday, the 14th?
it's fine.
Yep.
Friday, the 14th?
Yep.
Okay,
Friday, the 14th work?
okay. And
Okay, and we're gonna do sub area goals and policies.
summary goals and policies
And the
and,
map.
and the paths and potential road map.
And I would say if anybody wants to draft more language or bring in any more specifics, let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay, and or edit comments.
yeah.
Okay, good,
Okay, great.
all right.
Okay, so now we've got the building permit, the Hague, new construction of garage and foundation for modular home. Pull that up.
Do we really need to, girls?
I don't really need to,
I
I
don't
suppose.
need to do
Did
it.
anybody have any comments
No,
or
it seemed like
concerns?
it,
No.
Scott, did you have any concerns about those permits?
No, they're pretty straightforward.
I think the first one's fine. I only had a question on why we got the second one and why does it have a different number than it was last month? It's a
I
different,
agree with that.
do you notice that? It was a
Yeah.
different, number.
I guess I could ask, but I don't know.
Did anybody compare them?
I tried to put it on my iPad and on my computer and
Thanks,
I
Andrea.
couldn't figure out what there was something on this one, a first page or something. Maybe we could bring it up.
I didn't see side by
I'm
side.
wondering if this time it's just a boundary line adjustment to what we agreed to last time. That's what I ended up thinking, that they just moved the line some from what we looked at last time.
But it's still called a simple land division.
Yeah, but I think but don't they label this one? I don't have it right here in front of me. Don't they label this one as a boundary line adjustment?
I didn't think so.
You pull it up.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Can you bring up from last month's agenda on yours, the other one? Do you have the agenda still
Yeah,
on your computer?
Probably. Let's see.
Let's see if I can share this.
Computer.
How do I share?
People check.
Not working anymore without it.
Well, maybe.
Teams. Share right there.
Ah, there we go.
This month was March, right?
It's March, yeah, it was March, it's not the special meeting one. It's
I don't think I have.
It was March 2nd.
Yeah.
You can go to the calendar.
Nah,
Okay, I will.
sorry.
Okay, here it is. It's simple land division.
Oh, this is the,
I don't think there's a problem in any case.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I just was kind of curious on why we got it
Yeah.
again and why it had a different number. That was all. I was being nosy.
Oh, come on, Lee.
Well, I am really kind of concerned. Have you checked out the layers on the comprehensive plan recently?
No, what do you see?
All of the new wetland or
Oh,
is layered on everything.
really?
Yes.
Because they're redoing the what's it called, critical area?
Critical, everything in
I had
East
a-
End is considered critical area.
I had a
kind of
brief
Kind of like
conversation.
Lopez Village, the whole thing is, the
the whole bill.
whole village is wet.
Yeah,
Our whole village is wet,
Well, that should be identified.
but it's all developed. Right?
It's developed, so
Yeah.
but
well, except
It
for the
could-
people that would like to develop.
it's of interest to us because we're pushing for more development.
More
of the
development.
village,
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
We would like to
it's,
see that.
I mean, the,
Yeah, my fear is that if you don't develop in the center of town because there's something to be concerned about, then we'll end up expanding the UGA and doing
Exactly.
more damage.
So I'll just throw a wrinkle in things.
can we,
As long as we don't expand the UGA past the sub area boundary,
Yeah,
would that be acceptable to people? Or would that be something for us to think about?
that would be something for.
Yeah, not to me.
I would.
Not to you, but I just, I see services like sewer and water, and as a civil engineer, I'm like, you build where the services are,
That's right.
and you develop where the services
It's
are,
like you build where
And
the
you-
highway goes.
and you go through whatever contortions you have to go through with the state and the county to let you use and utilize the important environmental protection services that we have here. And I think I feel like sometimes I'm the only one that's like, we need to hook up to, we need to be able to hook up to the sewer, it's like,
The
come on.
question that I was asking Jason before about, the Fred Klein's old parcel, the Opal
Right?
lot now and other areas in there. That's gonna happen, but it needs to happen in phases, right?
Right.
Not all at once.
And I think,
For getting more density into the existing UGA before we blow out the boundaries.
right,
And,
Well,
the UGA right now, as I pointed out in my stuff, land uses in village commercial is like one house per 3/4 of an acre of
Exactly.
land.
well,
It's crazy.
Right.
When it's zoned at 40 per acre, that's crazy
That's
too.
crazy.
But-
I'm just
but
saying,
you
there's
gotta come
so,
in somewhere
we
in the
have
middle.
so much property that's never gonna be developed.
Yeah.
It's just never gonna happen. So to me, it doesn't matter if it's inside or outside of the UGA,
What do you mean, so much property?
the land bank property. You have,
Yeah.
you have all this green space, that's never gonna change. I'm looking at Apalco, I'm looking at Country Corner.
Right.
I'm looking at, and then over on the west side, you have all the View Haven. You have all the housing developments over there that butt right up against the sub area plan
Oh, I would,
boundary,
I
not,
would agree with you, like south of Mount Baker Road in all of those areas.
Yep.
That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense, but not north.
Nope.
I wouldn't want to urbanize this.
oh, no,
Yeah.
but it will never be urbanized because it's all land bank.
Well, some of it is, not all of it.
Right.
Um,
Anyway, just stuff to think of. I'm really gonna bang the drum. I wanna bang the drum for being able to hook up
yeah.
to services where it's
Well, another thing
it's
is
available.
we've got some
you know.
strange land use designations like rural residential, East Sound rural residential.
Yeah.
That's a peculiar thing.
Yeah, that,
The 5 acre.
Yeah,
yeah,
that- that's a strange animal right there.
Yeah.
What more could be done there?
but anything that's like service light industrial
I-
or anything like,
I mean,
Right.
I just think that
needs to be hooked up,
either it's rural or it's urban,
right?
Let's
Or it's
make
ag.
it rural resident, let's
You've
make
got
it,
ag, you've got,
I don't think so, Charles. 5 acre is a somewhat rural designation.
why not just, why not
Sure,
just
I would
why
prefer
don't we
for it
just
to see
remove-
it down zone
remove
and
the,
become 10 or 20, but that's not gonna happen.
or you just have East Sound 1 and East Sound 2.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Then you wouldn't get caught up in the
Mhm.
planning language of what people
Yeah.
think rural is and what
That-
people think
I agree with you.
urban is.
I
But
think
I
our
could-
problem is that so much of East Sound is zoned at a 1/4 acre. which is a complete waste,
See, this is
So I
just-
know that Cindy
I
needs
just-
to leave soon, and I just wanted to point out that I just went through this and it looks identical to me. I
Well,
don't
so
see
this,
any
it says it's 27,795 and this is 2,793.
Just take it, take the tray.
So I just thought it was kind of interesting. Obviously they went back to them to ask for something.
So they're built. what are they
So
calling
here it
it?
is
They're not calling it anything.
20, but it did have
Right.
that
Oh, the map
same
here just
land
looks-
use.
no.
So, okay,
Okay.
as long as it had
No,
the
very
same.
different.
So I wanted to let everybody know that Lisa Byers contacted me about some of the trees that have died on the side in April's Grove. And she said that she's committed to having a tree canopy in that area, but they're gonna need to remove some trees.
Are those the ones with the yellow tape on them? I
Probably.
saw them today when I took the pictures on the other side.
Okay.
So they
And
are marked.
So she is gonna meet me at 12:15 on April 13th. And she hopes that Jeremy King can join us, the property manager. And so anybody who wants to go over there and look at trees and talk about their plan, is welcome to join us.
What is
April the 13th.
It's Thursday.
Thursday. From today. Does anybody have any other announcements or questions or agenda items for next month's meeting?
No, we just said Friday, the 14th at 4 o'clock or
4 p.m. right now.
4 p.m. at Atocalco.
It didn't have the
Okay.
listening air code.
Well, thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. This was a great meeting.
So it's
Yeah, I'll go stop the recording.
5:16, 5:20.
So
we're gonna do
Adjourn
it.
at 5, no,
5:17.
5:17.
I'll write it down.
Does anybody want to take macaroons?
I'll take one.
Okay, take as many as you want, and I'm leaving the rest for Dave Howard.
All right.
Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah.
Say one for me, Cindy.
I thought it was, but maybe not.
I'll put a bag over McKillian tomorrow morning.
Think about it.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.
Bye, Scott.
Bye, guys.
Some other maps.
We do.